it left, a lot of devastation in its wake. The spokesperson of the Federal Road Safety Corps and the Ogun State Police Command, as at the time, were not there to record this, but it's sad that, houses and other vehicles were damaged by this. And then yesterday, more than 90 people died after a petrol tanker exploded in Jigawa State. And so far, the police command in the state says 9 people have been confirmed dead after the petrol tanker exploded on the Kano-Hadejia Expressway on Tuesday. Isu Adam, spokesperson of Jigawa Police Command, said the resulting inferno left 50 others with varying degrees of injuries, and said most of the victims were trying to scoop petrol after the tanker had tipped over.
Wow.
And then, boom, it went off around 11:30 p.m. at night. I would have thought people would be tucked in and snoozing. But one person would have just raised the alarm. Petrol, people.
It's good like Nigeria.
1,200 per litre, and everybody would scamper.
It's like a gold rush. Unfortunately, it ended in a serious disaster for the people involved. Well, all we can say is that all authorities should be up and doing in this time of emergency, both in Lagos and Jigawa, to make sure that they put out the inferno, clear the debris, and we are required adequate compensation should be given to victims, adequate health care and other forms of attention should be given to the survivors. Whatever we can do as a people and as a government to bring succor to the victims, and to also put in place measures to minimize incidences such as this. People have talked about the need to resuscitate our network of pipelines across the country so that we'll reduce the dependency. It's even cheaper to actually pump petrol through pipelines from one part of the country to the other, rather than using diesel-powered trucks, to haul petroleum products. It's better that way, and maybe more investment should really go into that. I think the federal government should at this time begin to think of resuscitating its network of pipelines, regional pipelines that links, the Niger Delta oil-producing areas with the north and across the country. So we need to resuscitate them and expand that network of pipelines so that we can actually rely more on pipeline distribution of petrol. We can also make use of rail tankers to maybe have tankers that can run on rail. So that anything that can reduce the incidence of road transportation of petroleum products will be very good for us as a country going forward. But other than that, all we can say for now is we should need to bring succor to victims, those whose businesses have been destroyed, and all of that. So we need to come together as a people and as a government to provide the necessary support for everybody involved in this, yes.
If we're looking at the tankers involved in all of this, is it on the government or the marketer or the fuel station that owns the truck that should be held or to compensate at this point in time?
Yes, well, I do not know how it really works. I don't know the regulations, but what I know is this. Whatever the regulation is, government should also come in to enforce the regulation. If there is no clear regulation on this matter or any clear rules that applies in this instance, the concerned government, state and local governments, can also come together to, help and give support to the people that are involved, particularly businesses that have been destroyed. That should be part of government responsibility too. But if, for instance, there's a liability on the tanker owners for this, of course, let the government also enforce it. So whoever is responsible, the government has responsibility to make sure that they facilitate and midwife the process of support for victims and survivors too.
I wonder if there's a way we can actually educate people to avoid these things when it does happen. I've seen one too many of it. It feels like even with this one, in that same community or that same highway, if it happens again, people will still come out, even from those who lost people from them.
Petrol remains good and people remain poor. There will always be a rush for good by the poor, so it's a good rush. So it simply tells you that we need to upgrade the living standard of our people, not to have the need to go and scoop free petrol from an accidented petrol truck. It simply is the sign of a depressing form of poverty that is widespread in Nigeria. That's what it symptomizes
at this point in time.
So that's what it is really. So we need to do much more to upgrade the living standards of our people to a point where people will not need to go and rush and scoop petrol and endanger their own lives, their own properties.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, may their souls rest in peace.
I mean,
leaders of the Nigerian Labour Congress and their trade union Congress counterparts are currently meeting with the federal government, and it's gathered that the meeting is centered on the state of the nation, especially the petrol pricing and its consequences. And according to sources, the meeting is taking place at the Secretariat. Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume. At the meeting, we have Malam Nuhu Ribadu, the National Security Advisor, Nkiru Konya Jocha, Labour Minister, Wale Edu, Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy. Others are Alhaji Mohammed Idris, Information Minister, Hainekin Lokobiri, Petroleum Minister, State, and Erikwe Ekpo, Minister of State for Petroleum Resources and representative of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPCL. So we don't have all of the detail, but this is what the meeting is about. And given the individuals who are there, I wonder what the outcome of the meeting would be, because it feels as if talking about bringing back subsidy and all of that, we've talked ourselves to a stupor, to a point where it just feels like people have lost their voice at this point in time. So you've lost your voice just talking about it. But the NLC and the TUC are still screaming blue mud in one corner, saying the federal government betrayed trust, they didn't do this, and setting action and implying there'll be a protest. I don't know if they still pack a punch enough to cause any significant change in government policy if they decide to down tool and go on a protest, because it feels like the trust level that Nigerians have on these bodies have depleted so much that I don't know how many people is going to come out. But perhaps the hunger and the suffering is enough to maybe compel people to come out at this point in time. Dr. Majeed, I wish I was a fly on the wall to give a bit more update as to what they're talking about at the moment, but I'm here in the studio with you. But do you think anything good, significant will come out of this, given our history? I
don't think so. Anything that does not reduce the petrol price from what it is now to the levels the current admission inherited it in 2023 is not good enough. And I think
what's that? 160.
195.
Dr. Majeed, we've gone so far away from there that I feel like it's daydreaming to even think we're going to go back there.
And that's the problem. We must always remember that even at 195, it was not easy.
I agree.
People think that we're enjoying so much. We had such, luxury of energy abundance in terms of affordability. When the president came in and said, okay, let us sacrifice, we were already over-sacrificing. It was not easy. Let me tell you, when petrol was $105, I couldn't remember the last time I filled my tank. As at that level, it was bad. Why did Nigeria fall under the poverty, the global poverty index, where we are said to be the one of the poverty capitals of the world?
Yeah.
The country that Tinubu inherited was an impoverished one that was growing under intense insecurity and under negative indices of human development. So it was not actually Uhuru. It's not like the UK where they had so much. When people try to compare Nigeria and the UK, I say, for instance, that some subsidies have been taken away now by the government. I say, no, UK has free healthcare system for citizens. UK has child support for families. UK does not have problem of widespread unemployment. UK still maintains social housing at the level of the councils. UK still provides affordable, if not in some cases free education from primary to secondary level, public qualitative education. There are so many things that they still enjoy, so many. They have very high wages, very high. And so if the government says, look, okay, we want to save money small, from this your plate, you have egg, you have apple, you have sweet, you have garden egg. So let us take away one out of the two sweets that is on your plate. You don't compare that with a citizen of a country that has no plate at all, not to have any of these items on the shelf or in the plate for such citizens. We are not in the same category. As at May 29, 2023, we were poor, there was nothing, even the education that they say is subsidized in Nigeria is not qualitative enough. That is why most parents feel as though they are being inhumane to their own children to take them to public schools. It's like, as a parent, you are negligent, you are irresponsible if you take your child to a Nigerian public school. So it's as good as non-existent. The same thing
but that's what a lot of people can afford. The critical mass of people still send their kids to public school.
It is with regret. It's as though they are failing their responsibility to provide quality education. But in the UK, it is, in fact, the best schools are public schools. From the Oxford University to Cambridge to the Edinburgh University, these are public universities. So it is some of the most prestigious schools in the UK are public schools. So, and it is free or subsidized or affordable for citizens. What am I saying in essence? Nigeria had none of this. And so what we expected our parents to have done on that day as a new government was to have reduced petroleum price or institute subsidy on diesel. I keep insisting to reduce the poverty levels in the country. But no, you have to have subsidy on petrol, which is the most utilized energy product in Nigeria. It is clear now. You can see the effect. We are still discussing this.
It's saying that the fuel price increase is also responsible for the high inflation that's gone to 32.7%.
Again and again.
No, I'm just looking at the report that came out in terms of our inflation.
It's a direct. That when your CBN is tightening monetary rate, I'm like, who told the CBN governor that Nigeria is experiencing demand pull inflation? Maybe I have too much money. For example, as you're sitting down now, you have so much money in your pocket that you are chasing more goods than Sahel can offer you. So that makes it hard to now increase the price, since Kim is always coming every day to buy more than we have in stock. Do you get the point? Is that the situation in Nigeria?
Not at all.
I wonder where they got that idea from. So I'm happy now that despite the fact that they've also increased the monetary or interest rate during their last MPC meeting, indicators clearly shows that energy price what is driving up inflation in Nigeria.
In short, the inflation went up after that.
When you talk about excess money circulation, Nigeria does not have enough money, let alone having it excess in circulation. Nigeria is too cash strapped to have excess money in circulation. Do you know what it means to have excess money in circulation? How much circulated in Nigeria? Less than 5 trillion naira. Naira that is 1,007 to the dollar. In the US, the average daily circulation of cash in the US is $2.2 trillion.
All right, let's go for a quick break and we'll find out afterwards. Stay with 95.1 Nigeria Info.
365 days of conflict. Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th killed 1,200. To date, Israel has killed over 14,000 children. These are not just numbers, they are lives forever changed. Join us for the first of our annual Borderlines debate, a symposium on the Middle East crisis, Thursday, November 7th at 4 p.m. A forum where ambassadors, diplomats, and humanitarian voices will gather to debate the yesterday, today, and the way forward for Israel, Palestine, and the Middle East. Is there a pathway for peace? The Borderlines debate, November 7th at 4 p.m. This is a chance to hear from both sides. Real stories, real stakes, real solutions. Don't miss the repeat broadcast on Friday, November 8th at 4 p.m. Borderlines debate, Thursday, November 7th at 4 p.m. Only on Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
Welcome back to your number one talk, news, and sports station. This is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info.
On the Roundtable, looking at some of the big stories driving conversation, and we have Dr. Majeed Dahiru with us here in the studio. And the NLC, the TUC are meeting with the federal government and some key stakeholders in the petroleum sector to deliberate over the price of petrol in Nigeria. We've seen the petrol price increase apparently is also responsible for the high inflation that we're seeing as part of the MPS increase of interest rate. Inflation kind of like is still significantly rising at this point in time. That's what we're talking about with our guest, Dr. Majeed Dahiru, researcher, columnist, and detective lead of Luke's Terra Leadership Foundation. So, you've painted a picture of what's in second.
Experiencing a cost-push inflation of the worst kind in living memory. It has nothing to do with excess money. There's no excess money anywhere. So I don't know how the orthodoxy that people are still operating come across to them really. I don't know. I don't know what or who they're trying to impress. And so we are still on this conversation about petrol. 1 year, almost 6 months later, we are discussing petrol price. It tells you the centrality.
That's because it's not even been stable. I mean, we've seen 3 times increase since then.
You see, let me reiterate something, and I won't be tired of saying it. Energy is the oxygen of the economy, because like I've always maintained, what energy is to the economy is what air is to the living thing. So as a human being, for instance, you can go for a number of days without food and even water. I mean, people that try fasting for 30 days, 18 days, 21 days. But you can't do it without air. It's almost impossible. So for us that fast during Ramadan and during Lent, we can go the whole day without food and water. But we can't go a few minutes or even an hour without air.
True.
And that's why God didn't give us food for free. We have to work for food. We have to work for water. We have to drive to the stream to go and fetch water. Even in the Garden of Eden, Adam had to stretch his hand to eat the forbidden fruit. He had to eat. He had to do a bit of work to eat. But air, you don't have to work to breathe in air, because God knows that air is so important to you that He gave to us for free. So if you want to know what God has done for you, go to the hospital and see those that now have to pay for air, for oxygen, to stay alive. You understand that, okay, what keeps you alive, God has given to you free in His infinite mercy. So government on earth is the God we know. The government, the God you know. The entity that has power over life, that can give you life and give you death, is the government. This government. So governments all over the world that are responsible have assumed the responsibility of God on earth. So they provide welfare for their citizens. They provide so many other things to make life. It's the same way God gave it to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Now, one of the things that governments have realized must be, if not free, but be very affordable, is energy. Governments, reasonable thinking, have come to that conclusion, that realization, since the 70s, to know that, look, everything revolves around energy. National security. Even the physical security.
Perhaps that's why the National Security Advisor is in the meeting.
Let me start with the physical security. For police to patrol Abuja effectively, they need petrol. To use their heavy equipment, they need diesel. To fly the aircraft for the Air Force, you need jet carrier. To patrol your waterways, you need one form of energy or the other. Energy drives even the physical aspect, the hard aspect of security. As you increase fuel price, it's also going to increase spending that is not really there, available for the military. So the mega money that goes to the military, for example, you budgeted money for the military for last year or for this year, 2024, and you increase fuel price midway, it means that affected the budget of the military to be able to undertake its own responsibility of even patrol alone. Who's going to compensate for that? Are you going to send budgetary environment to say, okay, since it has affected the cost of logistics for the armed forces and internal security agencies, we need to increase the money. Are you going to be doing that every month as you increase petroleum price? That's one. Secondly, because energy impedes or encourages productivity, you need that energy to produce. So for an economy, for us to be in this room today, what we are doing here is busy. We're working. We're not here partying. Everything that drives us, both from our home to this place, and what we're using to reach out to Nigerians on air, is driven and powered by energy.
Indeed.
But there's no guarantee that we're going to get advert placement yet to grow our business. There's no guarantee that revenue will come in. But to stay afloat,
yeah.
For you now to be consistent enough to attract revenue through adverts and other forms of revenue streams for a media house like Nigeria Info, you need to be afloat. So to be afloat needs to be made affordable and easy for us as operators before this time. Otherwise, we won't do operate for more than 24 hours until we shut down, and there will be nobody to give us revenues through adverts. Governments understand this. So that is why there's nowhere in the developed hemisphere, none, where energy that is most utilized, particularly fossil fuel-derived energy, petrol, diesel, and others, where it is left, the pricing is left to the dictate of market force. That's something like the regulation in America. That's not like the regulation in China. That's not like the regulation in Saudi Arabia. I've used these three countries because according to IMF, not me, IMF said, look, By 2023, last year, the global support for the global spending on subsidies for fossil fuel had reached $7 trillion. Of this amount, China alone has spent $2 trillion subsidizing fossil fuel. And per capita, the largest subsidizer of fossil fuel is Saudi Arabia. That's why, for instance, Saudi Arabia petroleum price for 2 years straight remained at 63 cents unchanged. They're the biggest spenders for subsidy on petrol. They are closely followed by China in terms of per capita, but in absolute terms, China comes first. But both countries are followed closely by America. Now, America and China are the two of the world's largest economies, productive, healthy, export competitive. Now, in America, they consume on the average 1.2 billion liters of petrol per day. 1.2 billion liters. In China, they consume average of 800 million liters per day. You know, when they say your consumption is up to 50, somebody starts shouting that because we are smuggling. I say, for a country of 200 million people,
given our population, yeah.
Any petrol consumption in Nigeria below 200 million liters per day is an indicator that your economy is not productive at all.
Not vibrant,
it's
yeah.
not vibrant because you need these things to power your energy. So if America can still subsidize petrol that is consumed on such a scale as 1.2, and this is like the lower average, and China the same thing, it tells you the importance of this commodity or this product to economic productivity. This has not stopped China from having $3 trillion plus in its foreign reserves. It has not made Saudi indebted. Saudi is one of the richest countries in the world that still subsidizes food, healthcare, anything subsidizable. In Saudi, you go to school as a citizen and they pay for going to school. Now, I've asked you severally, you cannot come across a Saudi man in Nigeria roaming about the street looking for a job or even having an investment in Nigeria. The stress will kill them.
But Dr. Majeed, is it something peculiar to Africa? Because we could also look at Angola with all its oil wells and all of that. It's still a highly indebted country.
And that's why we have to look at the issue of corruption and maladministration. I've said this every day, the government must be above board like Caesar's wife, must be as white as snow, and must be as angelic as Angel Michael. One thing that is going between China, Saudi, and America is that, look, these countries have physical discipline, have integrity, prone leadership. Unless they have taken a decision to deliver for the people, that is their pride. So the American president, for example, earns $400,000 per annum, consolidated. That does not include money for food. He has to feed himself and clothe himself, including his laundry. That's all he earns on. Nothing more than that. So if you're not ready to serve the American nation, don't become president of America.
Don't take up the job.
So people that go to politics in America, people that simply want to serve, it's their calling. You know, in everything in life, everybody have their individual calling. I live in an estate, for example, where I was offered the position of chairman of the
estate.
Something they call it board of trustee. I said, sir, I know my calling in life. I cannot do this job. I can't do it. And each time I look at my treasurer in the estate and my chairman, I look at them in awe. Where do you have this energy to do this work? Why? They are doing it for free. Absolutely free. They use their own resources and time to do the job. Now, they have that calling. It's in their nature to want to work for others. It's only such people that should go to politics in a sane climb. But if you are a fortune-seeking person, politics is not for you. Because politics is the leadership recruitment process in a democracy that gets elected as governors, senators, and all, to manage public resources. So the reason why these other countries are able to provide for their people is because look at their leadership. Saudi is a monarchy. But have you seen the simplicity of the Saudi monarchy? Have you seen from their dressing? To the point that I was asking
except you're saying there, but I've always seen the affluence exhibit sometimes with some of members of the royal family when they go on their vacation.
Based on citizens' welfare and the earnings of the country. That family has worked first to pile up money. What you see them enjoy as affluence is their own entitlement, legitimate. And I'm saying, even at that, you can still see the modesty. Look at the dressing of the average member of the royal family. It does not look different from the ordinary Saudi man. Go and look at it from UAE to Bahrain to Qatar. If you don't know who King Salman is physically, and you see him in the midst of other Saudis, you can't detect him. You can't know who he is. Secondly, I was asking my daughter, I said, have you noticed that the king of Saudi Arabia does not receive visitors sitting on a very gigantic throne? Have you noticed it? But if you come to Nigeria, our traditional rulers here will sit on a throne that is almost touching heaven. And we are carried that looks like, according to Governor Wiki, Usman Danfodio, on their head. It tells you the value system that as leaders, modesty, even in outlook, is essential. That's why they've been able to do this. Prosperous, rich. I'm trying to draw a difference between energy security and a prosperous economy. Now I used US and China, two of the world leading economies, to show you that they are not stupid. They are not mad to invest heavily in energy security. I don't know if I read out to you a notice or a statement from the White House in May. They said, look, going into the dry season in America, that the White House has ordered the release of 1 million barrels of gasoline from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve.
You talked about it.
To bring down the price of petrol, among many other measures that they have taken. And that the government is still committed to affordable energy. Go and listen to Trump's policies on energy. You won't hear anybody talk about subsidy removal on it. You can't, it's not something that you can hear in this debate till after the election.
Well, the thing for us is the corner where we found ourselves is because if you're an indebted country to even world organization like the IMF, we know that they are very, very strict with setting economic policies before they give any support.
Indebted? And I'm saying that this will get us more indebted. Let me tell you how this is going to affect government. Again, government budgeted a certain amount of money before inflation started this aggressively. Are you telling me that government will be to still procure? Right? Procure. With what they've budgeted in view of the current realities. Can't you see that it's affecting government itself? Look at forex differentials. Our 2024 budget was benchmarked by $800 per barrel, $800 to the naira. What is it today? Almost twice that. What does that tell you? It has technically halved your budget, the value of your budget. So this policy is not just hurting the people, it's affecting government revenue. And we're like, without air, human cannot exist. God give it to us free. Government must understand that without energy, you can't have production and productivity enough to create wealth. Let me give you another example. Let me drive home this point. It's our policymakers must make up their mind what they want. And they've not. I think there's an authority that is leading them. And I do not think it will get us in the right direction. But they are entitled to their orthodoxy and their opinion. But take note of this. If you import a pair of shoes from China, you ship it from, you know where China is to Nigeria? You bring it to the port of Lagos, for instance. You clear your goods. You move the same stock from Lagos, Tinkan Island or Wharf or Apapa, anywhere. I will truck it through road, and put it in your warehouse. I can tell you for free that pair of shoes you bought it from China will still be cheaper than the one that was made in area market, in the same market. Why? The man in China, does not take loan from the bank at double-digit interest. It's impossible. Do you know the interest rate in Japan? 0.8%. In fact, it was in the negative before. I don't know how somebody can actually fix interest rate at the negative. 0.8.
Well, Japan is going through some sort of recession, so perhaps it would have gone up a little.
No, it's called a deflation.
Deflation.
That is. Okay. You have money in your hands and goods are too cheap. So that is like a problem of you don't chop belly food. So they try to contain their constipation. So let's leave. They don't have the basic problem. They can't even have it. Now, you look at Germany, you look at UK, you look at US, all of them are reviewing interest rate downwards. Then you have a CBN that is tightening it and increasing it and telling you trying to fight
inflation.
I don't understand the logic, and we're having these problems.
All right, talking about the CBN, I know they would definitely not be happy over the World Bank reports that says Naira among worst performing currency in the world. The Naira has been listed among the worst performing currencies in sub-Saharan Africa in 2024. This is according to the latest edition of the African Pulse, a report by the World Bank. As of the end of August 2024, the Naira had depreciated by approximately 43% year to date, making it one of the region's weakest currencies, alongside the Ethiopian birr and the South Sudan pound. The depreciation of the naira is attributed to several factors, including surging demand for United States dollar in the parallel market, limited dollar inflow, delay in foreign exchange disbursement by Nigerian Central Bank. And the World Bank report further highlights that demand for dollars, driven by financial institutions, non-financial end users, and money managers, has exacerbated the pressure on the naira.
This simply translates into the fact that petroleum price will keep increasing. Because even in Nigeria, our local market, thanks to the PI, is internationalized and dollarized. You buy crude in dollar or its equivalent, you pay Dangote for in dollars to get products. So somehow we came up with a law that internationalizes our domestic market. You know, I picked holes with the PIA long ago. And I told you, I don't understand why Nigeria even needs a PIA. That Saudi does not have a petroleum industry law. You see, you don't even need law sometimes to manage.
No, you compare so frequently with a country that apparently has got its act together.
We are living in the same contemporary world and competing with global resource together. So you must benchmark your performance with those you are competing with. You see, it's not Igbos, houses and what that are supposed to be competing for Nigerian resources. No, that's why we are where we are today. You should understand why somebody is competing you. Why somebody is producing 10 million barrels per day, you are still struggling to produce less than 2 million barrels per day. You have to understand what the person is doing right and what you are doing wrong. Don't keep pointing to Saudi, because they are not producing country like us. But how come Aramco is where it is and NNP is not there? We have to understand why. So we go round and round looking for laws, and it is not the law. You see, this story you just came up with is tied to what Ajero and his colleagues are trying to sort out to the government. What is clear that 70,000 naira has been operated by this current petrol price.
Obviously. But
the mistake they made, NLC, was not to have protested subsidy removal. Even though they were in peril, though, because there was something that the government used as blackmail, that your own candidate said he was going to remove subsidy. So that was something that imperiled. It was like encumbered the NLC from acting true to type. After that, they had to negotiate bread and butter. That is, they came up with a price, give us 600,000 plus as minimum wage. So that we can afford it now if you give us this big bulk pay. So if you like, remove subsidy. But even that would have been unsustainable, because you know why? If you don't control energy and currency, these two components of any economy, if you do not control it, if you don't regulate it, no, I told you there's nothing like deregulation in any sector of any economy. It has to be regulated. Especially pricing for energy has to be regulated. The same thing with food. If you don't regulate it, one, there will be price instability. Enough to even discourage participants in the downstream sector. What we're not even looking at yet is this. With the rate at which the naira is underperforming, right? We are looking at the government still intervenes in naira. If the government had allowed the naira to float, as they allowed it to float up until they get to 1,940, they started intervening. If they had allowed that policy to continue, what it meant was that naira would have been depreciated per minute, and price of petrol would have been changing per second, and price of goods and services on the shelf of our shops would have been adjusting upwards by microseconds. I don't know how we're going to survive it. But time government is even intervening feebly to hold the currency not to get to 2,000. So anytime it crosses 1,007, they quickly intervene by bringing dollars to share or to auction to BDCs. Something that they shouldn't have abandoned in the first place. Now, but even at that, we still see that volatility in the forex market. And since you have a dollarized, internationalized, local oil and gas sector, particularly for the downstream, it means anytime there is an increase in dollar, in the price of dollar against the naira, or the value of dollar against the naira, it will impact on petrol price. Now the question is this: if you're a marketer, and then you go to buy from Dangote, say 1 liter for 1,000 naira, and suddenly in between the time you went to discharge your customers and you came back to restock, naira has depreciated against the dollar by say 2 or 3 or 5 naira.
You definitely will reflect
immediately. And Dangote has stood there now. The next stock you're going to get is no longer 1,000, 1,100. Is that a loss for that business? Because it means you are going to mop money now to procure less and less and less until you fizzle out. And you have interest rate to pay at 30%, thanks to CBN, Cardoso CBN. So this is common bus-stop economics. This cannot work. It's not sustainable.
All right.
But unfortunately, the NLC didn't understand on time that no amount of bread and butter can be sustained in a country that is deficient in energy security at all. So it's like a bottomless pit. You can't control it.
Well, I don't know if at this point they can even still do much.
There's nothing. The government is far too gone, and the NLC has lost the plot. Unfortunately for Nigerians too, there is no political party with a concise alternative to what the status quo is offering. This is what makes it even more disastrous, because all that Nigerians will be waiting patiently for the next election. It's okay, since these other ones are offering some, none. The PDP is embroiled in internal crisis. The Labour Party, the same thing. Because when we talk about parties, all governors that are for subsidy removal because it increases their revenue, including Labour, including ABGA, including PDP, including APC. That's one. On the floor of the National Assembly, I've not heard Labour members, ABGA, PDP, speak out in a manner that shows that this is our position on this matter. We oppose subsidy removal. We are calling for its return, or we've not seen. They are still because maybe they have their own so they are well taken care of. So nobody's talking about it. Once in a while we hear Atiku or Obi make statements to the fact that, but both of them have not fundamentally changed their position on subsidy removal.
All right.
So that I had thought that by now they should have sat down and have a rethink. I said no, maybe like Elfai said it clearly. Elfai said I didn't see the negative consequences of subsidy, but when I supported it. So I support subsidy now that the government is paying. At that time, the government was still paying subsidy. Now look, when you have a policy and you realize that it is not as you actually
envisioned,
there's nothing wrong in actually taking a step backward. Support the subsidy being paid now, even though it is more than what was paid before subsidy was removed.
All right. Dr. Majeed, let's take a few phone calls. We still have the concerning story of the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, saying that the increase in Nigeria revenue recorded in 2024 fiscal year is being strategically allocated to various social intervention programs aimed at improving the living standard of citizens and addressing pressing social needs. The minister said the social investment program is targeted to impact 60% of the poorest, reaching 20 million persons. He also revealed a comprehensive proposed agenda for economic reform, which aimed to reduce inflation, create jobs, stimulate growth in key sectors of the economy. At his October 1st, 2024 address, President Tinubu announced that the government revenue for the first half of 2024, January to June, that is, stood at over 9.1 trillion naira, more than double the 4.06 trillion generated in the same period in 2023. Now, speaking at a panel session titled Fiscal Reform for a More Secure Future during the 30th Nigerian Economic Summit in Abuja on Tuesday, Edun said the increased revenue is primarily being used to finance social programs aimed at mitigating the impact of essential but challenging reforms that affected the cost of living. And so about 20 million poor will get cash transfer and all of that. It's nothing new. It's something that Buhari has been doing before, interrupted, and then we're still singing the exact same song and hopefully hoping that some miracle would happen and change the outcome.
First, apart from the fact that whatever it is they want to do by way of social intervention is always inadequate. You don't even have enough money to do it. I've always been of the opinion that a country that is as poor as Nigeria, that is struggling in Nigeria, does not need social intervention at this level of its development. What you need is productivity. Before you can attain a status where you can begin to dish out social intervention programs, is when you attain some appreciable level of welfare for the overall majority of citizens through sustainable job creation and stable economy, prosperous economy. That is, people get out of school, they get jobs. From high school, you get jobs that is equivalent to the skills you have.
Yeah.
You get out of college, the same thing. I mean, there is a thriving economy. There's an upward mobility. You don't need to know nobody, just need to know what is right for you to know. And you enter the job market and you grow seamlessly. Because there's an export competitive economy that can absorb as many people as are available. When you have this, naturally in every society, there are people that still cannot climb the ladder of growth and progress. Career-wise, it's just natural. Either they have special needs, either they have, the usual. Some people just are not to be serious. After all my brothers are anywhere, so they should be taking care of me. Some have issues of drug, health challenges. It depends. So you cannot isolate these few people and put them on welfare. Then occasionally we have people that are out of jobs temporarily. You can also use from their tax to give them like a rebate. So okay, we'll place you on unemployment benefit, pending when you get your next job. It's a manageable population of people that are in need. Nigerians, as we speak today, majority of us are in need. Majority. So, as I speak to you, a university lecturer today qualifies for social intervention. A university professor qualifies for social intervention. A resident doctor qualifies for social intervention. Not talk of primary school teachers, secondary school teachers, normal civil servants. They call anybody in Nigeria any less than $1 million today in this economy qualifies for social intervention. So meaning, look, let's leave that. But what has gotten us this impoverished? Energy insecurity, unaffordable petrol is one of it. Right. Address it. You will have addressed the basic, the foundational cause of the current challenges, and make progress up there. That's why we keep drawing parallel that there's no developed economy that is prosperous, that toys with energy security. So you saw the national security advisor there. Apart from the physical security, if people can no longer produce and prosper legitimately, they will take to crime and social unrest. It makes his job for him more difficult. We saw the riots in Nigeria, we saw the anti-hunger protests and all of that. If the condition prevails, it will still manifest. It's a matter of cause and effect. Now I'm saying, sit down. Your policy may have been well-intentioned. I keep saying that this government implemented essentially what everybody campaigned with. And in fact, there was a national consensus on the eve of Tinubu's coming for subsidy to go. And that was why Tinubu himself received praises and accolades immediately. He removed it.
For meeting that
the only person that did not praise Tinubu in Nigeria was Majeed Dahiru. The only person that opposed that consensus before election, during and after, was me, myself, and I. Because I knew that this consensus was based on a very flawed assumption that will create the problem we have seen today.
All right, Dr. Majeed. Let's bring some people in. Let's get your feedback. Mahmoud Mohammed on YouTube. Yes, we're streaming live on YouTube from start of the conversation to this moment is on YouTube. You can go catch up and play back later at Nigeria Info Abuja. Mahmoud Mohammed says, whatever the federal government and labor union are discussing, they must bring down the price of fuel, electricity. Only these two items will stabilize the hardship and high cost of living in Nigeria. And David Bakbo says, Dr. Majeed, watching live from Abuja, good to know. James Ahwa, good afternoon. My heart goes out to the family of people from the two states that were, affected by the tanker fire. Sunday Okewu, my mentor, Dr. Majeed, good afternoon. God bless your wisdom. Thank you very much. And A.A. Rashid says, indeed, those economies that advise the government can never allow them to listen to people like Dr. Majeed. The solution is simple. The federal government must revert its policies. Oluwa Tosin Afolabi, kindly shed light, Dr. Majeed, on the implication of having a large ways and means debt and low ways and means debt. Thanks for the good work you do on Wednesdays. A.A. Rashid says energy security is the first that must be ensured in any country to make productivity easier. In my country, we have two sources, energy, STG, and GTG. We can supply at least 4 states 24 hours electricity.
Celebration. It's the Cool FM Independence Praise Jam, a night of uplifting worship and high.
This is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info.